Welcome to a new episode of Industry Insights. Today with Steve Heather, Director at CrisisClarity. Good morning, Steve. Thanks for taking part in this interview series. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, hi. Great to be here. My name's Steve Heather. I'm director of a small Australian-based consulting company called CrisisClarity, and I've been in the product recall, risk management, crisis management kind of world for about 30 years, primarily working with big food and consumer goods companies on risk recall and crisis management.
Great. So you are definitely an expert when it comes to product recalls. As I already found out on LinkedIn, you are also focusing on social media and the part that social media plays in a product recall and what part it can play and how it affects companies and their brand protection. So why do you think it is so important for companies to control what's out there about them?
Well, that's an interesting thing about social media. It's arguably, most people would say it's uncontrollable. We try to, we advise our companies to create what we call a single source of truth, which essentially means that we want the company to be answering the questions, because if you don't answer questions, consumers take their questions and their concerns somewhere else. And of course, as we've seen just about in every crisis, and particularly during COVID, when consumers take their questions and concerns somewhere else, that's where lots of misinformation starts to circulate. They don't get answers to their questions, and that just confuses people, builds up this kind of level of anger and rage, and incidents escalate. So what we're trying to do is become a single source of truth. So you do that by actually answering questions, which, believe it or not, many companies don't do, or at least don't do very well. Of course, in the old days when you had a problem, you would create a media statement and you would give it to the media in the hope that a journalist would use some of it, all of it, please, any of it. But of course, you're completely in the hands of a journalist at that point. So if they're having a slow news day, they might use some material. If they're having a busy one, they might not use anything at all. So that's a high risk strategy when we're talking about your reputation. So we try to develop this concept, as I said, of a single source of truth where consumers are coming back to you to answer the questions and address their concerns.
But how would you recommend companies to respond to negative posts about their product recall or really anything about their companies?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing is, first, the key point I think first is to make sure you do respond. I mean, there are very few instances where we would ever suggest companies don't respond to negative comments. So the important thing to remember about negative comments is they're based on what someone perceives as the company's behaviour. And we know that what causes incidents to go viral on social media is not so much the incident, whether it be a product safety related incident, recall, whatever it is, it's how the company responds to it. Consumers are focused on your behaviour. They want you to act with integrity, with authenticity, with transparency. Lots of companies will use these words, but we know that over 60% of consumers get most of their information from social media. So they will come to your site looking to answer those questions and concerns. So one of the things you need to do is to address them head on. And we use a really simple, I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but we use a really simple 4-part framework. And that is to acknowledge someone's told you that they have a problem, whether you agree or not. At this stage, it doesn't matter. You're acknowledging that they've told you that they've got a problem. You're empathizing with them, particularly when we're talking about a product safety related incident, particularly if it's a child has got sick. Obviously, that's going to create a level of concern. If you don't respond to those kind of comments, then you are seen as cold, and that is what creates this sense of anger. So acknowledge, empathize, Then we talk about action, and that might be in the early stages as just an investigation. And then lastly, follow-up. So when can the consumer expect you to get more information if that's what you're offering? So that kind of simple 4-part framework, acknowledge, empathise, act and follow up, is a good basis for responding to negative comments.
Oh, great. And how would you integrate social media into a recall process? Can you give us an example, for the stages that you're in and where to reach out first, how to inform the internet, or how would you proceed there?
Yeah, look, it varies from country to country. Most countries have a situation where the company will post a recall notice on, for example, the regulator's website. Yeah. Now, posting something is an example of one-way communication or an announcement, and they tend to be very cold and very fact-based. Now, that information is obviously very important, but if in these days of social media, consumers don't go to social media to read announcements. They actually go to social media to actually engage with the company. So as I mentioned a few times, they will have questions and they will have concerns, and you need to answer those, address those concerns. The more you do that in the early stages, the less escalation you get through social media. So one of the strategies we tend to use is to have, in addition to the official post, is have a short pin post where you've got, for example, at the top of your Facebook page, the basic information relating to the recall, of course, acknowledging people's concerns and expressing empathy, in addition to the facts that we're talking about. And then you have the frequently asked questions, and that can be done in a number of ways. You can, for example, comment on your own post. So you are actually answering consumers' probable questions. And as I said before, the more you do that in the earliest stages, the more people will actually get the information they're requesting. And in fact, if you do it well, you'll actually get consumers answering other consumers' questions with your information. So what we're trying to do is to set up this situation where you've got this positive commentary. Yes, a recall is going to be, anything related to product safety is going to look negative. But the more you take on board what those questions are, the more you are going to make sure that you are seen as actually concerned about people's safety, as actually being transparent, as actually being authentic, not just saying you are.
That is really great advice for all the companies out there, especially those who have not really discovered social media for themselves as a brand protection channel, really. So to summarize it all in one sentence, I would say never underestimate the power of social media, really. And wow, really great. Thank you for all the information, Steve, that you've shared with us. And thanks for your time. And this has been great. And I'm looking forward to staying connected to you and stay safe and stay healthy. And looking forward to connect with you again sometime. Thanks. Bye-bye. That's been Industry Insights with Steve Heather. Thanks for your attention and see you again soon.